Hello, welcome to Sound Off with System One. I'm your host, Krista Kornchuk, and I'm here today with our recruiting experts to speak with you about getting your resume noticed. Before we start, here are a few words about System One. System One is a leading provider of specialized, highly technical outsourced services and workforce solutions to critical infrastructure, technology, life sciences, and government sectors, putting more than 650 employees and 9,000 contractors to work in the United States, Canada, and the UK. As you're tuning in today, please join us in the comments. Our marketing team will be monitoring them. Let us know where you're joining from and what industry you work in. And if you have any questions relevant to today's topic, drop them in there as well, and we'll try to answer as many as possible. And next, I'm going to have our panel introduce themselves. They're also going to be sharing a hot job they're working on, which you can view by scanning the QR code or by visiting jobs.system1.com. Savannah, we'll start with you.
Hey, I'm Savannah Tessner. I'm part of the recruiting team here in the Tampa, Florida area, and I predominantly work on engineering and trade skills jobs. Today, my hot job is going to be a senior accountant, and this is going to be in Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania, overseeing general accounting functions, preparing financial reports, and supporting any compliance to the U.S. GAAP principles. I'm trying to target someone with a manufacturing background and at least about 3 years of experience or more.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Bueller with System One. I'm in Kansas City with our Kansas City team. I mostly focus on our IT services and IT staffing. I've been with System One for about 3 years now and been in the IT staffing industry for a little over 20 years. My hot job is a SAP functional consultant. Our client would like somebody that's focused on plant maintenance, as well as SAM, which stands for Service and Asset Management. It's a fully remote position, and we're looking for candidates that can do a 6 to 12 month contract. Thank you.
Make sure you connect with our recruiters if you're interested in those roles. And again, to view any other jobs, scan the QR code or visit jobs.system1.com. Without further ado, we're going to get started. Again, we're discussing how to get your resume noticed. If you have any questions, feel free to send them in. Our first question we have is, what is the first thing recruiters look for on a resume? Savannah, we'll start with you.
Yeah, the first thing I look for is if a candidate meets basic qualifications. So I'm scanning for things like job titles, keywords, and skill sets that align to the job description. I would say just as important is your formatting and clarity. So a clean, easy to read layout with clear sections really helps me quickly identify what I need to find on your resume. If it's too cluttered, too packed, too tightly, I might miss something important, and that means I might move on to the next candidate.
I agree with Savannah. Couple other things. They would like to see if any former jobs, former companies you work for relate to the company you're applying for or applying through us for. So make sure to list what type of industries they're in, as well as Savannah mentioned, the buzzwords. Make sure you include buzzwords that are identical or that match the job description as well too. That'll be helpful for us to recognize, as well as helpful to the hiring managers to recognize.
Definitely. And I know we're going to be diving deeper into those tips. Our second question is, how important is tailoring your resume for each job you apply to? And what's the most efficient way to do it? Kevin, we'll start with you.
Kind of relay off or piggyback off what I just said about including the buzzwords. You make sure if the company's looking for about 5 or 6 different technologies, make sure you list those technologies if it's for an IT position. Also, job titles. If you're applying for a project manager position and you've done project management before, make sure you list that titles. You don't want to be a developer applying for a project manager position.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. What I could also add is I definitely think tailoring your resume is super important. Just make sure you're being intentional. How I would describe it as the job description that a company posts is almost like the rubric that they're going to grade your resume against. So be intentional with those specific softwares, key skill sets, or any type of experience as it relates to the job description, because that's what they're really looking for.
Definitely. And our recruiters are here to help you be intentional and tailor your resume. So don't hesitate to reach out. What is the most common formatting mistake that causes recruiters to pass on a resume? Savannah, we'll start with you.
Like I might have mentioned earlier, maybe something with a cluttered layout, tiny fonts, capitalization errors, inconsistent spacing. Another issue is when I see candidates putting their very first job at the top of their resume and then working backwards. I want to see the most relevant and up to date experience at the top of your resume and then going down from there. Also, maybe don't include a bunch of graphics that could confuse any type of applicant tracking system and be distracting to the content you're putting inside your resume.
Also, when you're formatting your resume, put your professional experience first before your education. Unless you're just coming straight out of college, of course. But if you've been working for 5, 10, 20 years, put that in there. I'm not saying education is not important. It's extremely important, especially if you have a bachelor's degree or master's degree. But put the professional experience first, list all the different companies, different jobs you've done, and then you want to put in whatever education or certifications you do have. Also, I would say stay away from referring to yourself. I was just looking at a resume the other day, and I'll just use my name for instance. They say Kevin is very good at customer service. Kevin is a very quick learner. I wouldn't say stuff like that. I would just refer to yourself. I've had 10 years of customer service experience. I did some training before, but I wouldn't refer to myself in the resume like that, especially when you're talking going through like a professional summary.
Absolutely. And it looks like we have a question from one of our viewers. They want to know, how do you articulate 15 years of experience in a 2-page resume? Great question.
I could take this one.
Oh,
That's a wonderful question. I would put your most relevant experience up to maybe the first 10 years, and then maybe the more experience that's like 15, 10, past 10, put that as additional experience. List the specific job, the title, the where you worked, and how long you worked, but you don't have to put all the bullet points. So that kind of differentiates. If the hiring manager wants to ask further questions, they can still see your experience, but you're not diving so deeply into every single bullet point of what you were doing.
also, piggyback off that, if you've worked 2 or 3 jobs in 15 years, you should be able to put that on 2 pages. It's all right to do 3 or 4 pages. We've just seen some resumes that are 8, 9, 10 pages that are long for us as well as long for our client manager. Now, if you've had 7 or 8 jobs or 9 or 10 jobs in the last 10 years or last 15 years, to what Savannah's saying, you want to kind of limit your bullet points, but the most recent ones, that's where you kind of want to show what your experience is, especially if it's relevant to the job description.
Some good insight. And we had some other questions about length of a resume. So thank you both for answering that as well. Our next question, what is the best way to show quantifiable impact, numbers driven and not numbers driven? Kevin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say this more tailored towards a leadership position. So if you're if you showed where you've saved money like 1.5 million, or you ran a $2 million project or something like that, you might want to put that in those type of numbers in there. And especially if you're in a project manager where you're running a project and leading a project from cradle to grave, show how much expense there was, how much you budgeted for, if you came in under budget, over budget, what type of teams you're driving during that project.
So if we're focusing on something that's not numbers driven, I would focus on meaningful impact. So did you improve team or organization? Processes are smoother, boosting collaboration, enhancing the customer experience, highlight more so outcomes like increased efficiency, better communication, or stronger team support. And for example, so instead of listing tasks, describe how you contributed to the team's success or helped solve a key challenge that the organization was facing.
Fantastic. And we have another question coming in. Do you need to include a summary section on the top of a resume with skills listed after, followed by work experience? Great question about order.
I can run with this if that's all right with you, Savannah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would include a summary at the top, and should be no more than 3 or 4 sentences, maybe no more than 4 or 5 lines. And then if you want to list the skills that are relevant to the position you're applying for, then you might want to put that next. You don't want to list if you got 28 different skills, especially in technology. You don't want to list at the top, but maybe the top 3 or 4 highlighted skills are looking for. Then put that right under the summary. and then get into professional experience and the different jobs you were, the different titles and stuff like that.
Absolutely, I would agree. And sometimes I even skip a skill section if it's generalization, more so for IT, like Kevin's space. If you're working in a specific software and that's a key term that would be listed in a job description, that's when you want to put your skills inserted into your resume. If it's just generalizations, you're going to highlight that through the body of your resume with your bullet points.
Perfect. And I have another question about where to put education on the resume.
Yeah, so we mentioned that maybe a little bit earlier. You can put that at the bottom, unless you have that master's degree or you're straight out of college, like Kevin mentioned earlier. Then maybe you want to put it at the top. But if you have great experience in tenure, it being at the bottom is not going to hurt you.
Perfect.
I agree, especially that not that education is not important, but put your professional experience before your education and certifications as well next to your education.
Awesome. And our next question, how do you recommend job seekers list short-term gigs or contract work without seeming like a job hopper? Savannah, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I would recommend putting in parentheses right next to the job title contract. And then you could also explain maybe why the contract ended underneath as one of your bullet points. So they know that it's not hopping from job to job, that it was just a fixed term. Sometimes you did your job really, really well, and that's why the contract ended and you had to move on.
Kind of stole my words there, Savannah. I appreciate all the help
I'm
there.
sorry, Kevin.
No, you didn't steal. I was going to say the same thing you did, but no. But I agree with Savannah, obviously. But yeah, if you've had a lot of different jobs in the last 3 or 4 years, obviously you need to list those jobs, put them either full time or contract. And as Savannah was stating, make sure the list if they were a contract, why did it get met? It doesn't look great. I'll be honest with you. If you're job hopping around from job to job, even if you've been on a lot of contracts, so if you were a lot of full time positions hopping around, you might just need to kind of stick it out, and create that credibility and create that loyalty, and then it would just look better for other jobs as well too.
Great advice. And what are some resume red flags that might make you cautious about a candidate? Kevin, we'll start with you.
Kind of what I was just saying, if you've had a lot of different jobs over the last 10 years, and then if a resume is really long, I mentioned that earlier as well too. If it's 8, 9, 10 pages, that's just kind of a red flag. But also, if you had gaps in your resume, and so if there's like a 6-month gap or 8-month gap or 1-year gap, there might be reasons, might be personal reasons, it might be some other reasons, and make sure to provide that with the recruiters, and so we can provide that with the hiring managers.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Definitely with those employment gaps, make sure that you let us know. It's okay. Things happen. Just when it's unexplained, it can cause confusion and hesitancy. Also, make sure that you aren't being vague with your bullet points. Consistent formatting or inconsistent formatting and spelling, grammar mistakes, that's showing me a lack of attention to detail and could be a pretty big red flag on your work ethic moving forward in the job.
Absolutely. And we're getting more questions coming in. I just want to say to the viewers, we are talking about creating ATS resumes. So all of this advice applies. But what would you both say the biggest or most important feature of an ATS optimized resume is?
I think that goes back to one of our earlier questions. I think just tailoring your resume, because when an ATS system is scanning your resume, it is looking for the keywords as it relates to the job description. So it's more quality over quantity when you're submitting resumes. You want to be intentional with what you're submitting to each job, especially if you're really interested in the company that you're applying for.
I agree. And when it comes with applicant tracking systems, when they run those scans, you got to make sure you list before you submit your resume, make sure you list everything that matches up with that job description. And just don't mention it once or twice, mention it 3 or 4 times. If you have the experience with it 3 or 4 times in 3 or 4 different companies, make sure all that is listed. That'll just kind of move your resume to the top of the pile.
Perfect. And our next question, what's one outdated piece of resume advice that you're still seeing candidates follow? Kevin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, instead of putting everything on a resume, like maybe you worked at a car wash 15 years ago, or you worked at a restaurant 20 years ago, you don't need to put all that stuff on there. If you have worked a lot of jobs, just kind of put the last 4 or 5 jobs that are relevant to the position, put all the bullet points you can on that, and then kind of just list the other jobs you've had one by one by one. So they show you have been employed, you have been working, but you just want to list the positions that are relative to the position that you're applying for.
Absolutely. I would also say cover letters. I'm not saying cover letters don't have a time and a place. I just don't think cover letters are always important for every single position. Maybe if you're looking for a director, VP, higher level, and you want to do a cover letter, that would be a great time to make yourself stand out. But more so for the middle of the road, I'm looking for the qualifications and experience highlighted in your resume more so than a cover letter.
Perfect. And we have a question coming in about layoffs. What do you do for layoffs on your resume?
It's already go ahead and mention it. I've been impacted by layoffs before, and it's all right to list that. I was impacted by a company-wide layoff or a reduction in workforce or a RIF. It's all right to mention that. Unfortunately, those things are kind of going on right now, and but those things do happen. But it's all right to go ahead and mention that on a resume or mention that to the recruiter, so the recruiter can mention that to the hiring manager.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to mention it because personally, we're not going to hold it against you. Like Kevin said, it happens all the time and it's something that's out of your control.
Absolutely. And another viewer question we have are about resume gaps. If there are gaps between employment, how does that affect the evaluation?
Um, it, just tell us what the gaps are for. And if it's for personal reasons, that's understandable. Those things do happen. Um, and or you just need to take some time off, or maybe you did something that's unrelated to the job you're applying for. Just go ahead and that, because to be honest with you, the clients that we're working with, they're going to ask why those gaps are. So we want to be able to answer them right back, saying, okay, this is the reason he or she was not working for 6 months, or he or she took some time off last year, or something like that. Those are the things there's no problem with that. Now, if it's a gap for 4 or 5 years, they might, there might be a difference. But if it's a gap for 6 months or a year, those things are understandable.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to mention, for example, like stay-at-home moms that are coming back into the workforce. That's the one I see have the most difficulty. Situations like that when there's large gaps. If it's like one year and you have to take care of someone that's sick or something like that, or you're taking time off, like Kevin mentioned, you're probably not going to have as much of an issue with it.
And I think that's why it's so good to have a recruiter advocating for you because they can directly explain the situation to the hiring manager.
Good.
Our next question, have you seen resumes created with AI tools like ChatGPT? What makes them stand out and what makes them fall flat? Savannah, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some AI ChatGPT resumes. And I don't want to say don't use AI. I think AI can be really, really helpful for fine tuning your language and improving clarity. But I recommend starting with your own resume, with your own voice. When everything is written by AI, I can feel it come through. It doesn't feel like your true voice is shining through. So most effectively, I think write your own resume, have it fine tuned, or using those tailoring methods to help with phrasing as it relates to a job description.
Also, leverage our team, leverage us, leverage our recruiters. We look at resumes all day, every day, all day long. And we're not going to write it for you, but we can help to show where to move things around, help maybe different buzzwords or different types of way to say stuff, but leverage our recruiters. And obviously, like Savannah was saying, start with yourself, send it to us, and then we can help you out, tailor that resume to better fit what jobs you're applying for. If you want to use AI as a tool, you can. I would use it, but I wouldn't be the final copy. It would be more of as a rough draft because you want to kind of tailor it to yourself and not make it so generic. But most importantly, I would say leverage our team. Our team has been around for a long time. We have several people who've been doing this for a while, and they look at resumes, like I said, every day and all day, and they can help you create a resume that's very appealing to the hiring manager.
Absolutely. So make sure you connect with our recruiters. They're right here. We have another viewer question. Should you only apply for jobs in the cities or states that you live in? Good question.
Well, I think that depends. If you are working remote, apply to jobs all over. If you're looking to move to an area, you can put that you live somewhere else and you're looking to move. A lot of places offer relocation packages. So I think it just depends on what you're looking for and what the reasoning would be that you're applying to something that's not in your current state.
Yeah, like Savannah was saying, as long as you're up for relocation, no problem at all applying for somewhere else. But it's 2 hours away or 2 days away. Feel free to apply anywhere as long as you're good with the relocation.
Absolutely. And what's the final piece of advice for job seekers trying to stand out in a competitive market? Kevin, we'll start with you.
Thank you. One final piece I would give is make sure to send a thank you letter or follow up with that hiring manager or something like that, where you can just follow and let them know how interested you are. Let them know this is your experience. It's nothing real long. It's maybe 3 or 4 sentences, but make sure to follow up with an email. Or if you're working through a recruiter, send it to the recruiter so that recruiter can forward it on to the hiring manager. But I have seen some people not want to follow up and think they're going to get a next interview. Believe me, there's other people out there, other candidates that are following up, sending a thank you letter.
I would say my final piece of advice is being intentional and authentic in every part of your job search. Tailor those resumes and show genuine interest for the roles that really truly matter to you. Don't just list what you did, communicate your impact, and also take time to network. Reach out to me, reach out to Kevin, reach out to people. You'll be so surprised how many people will pick up the phone and get on a call with you and try to help you as best as you can. So leveraging a network can be so, so powerful.
Absolutely. And I'm going to take one more question from a viewer. For position details, how long should descriptions of job tasks and accomplishments be? Great question, Hannah.
I'll run with this. It kind of depends on how long you've been there. If you've been there for 1 or 2 years, then it's maybe 5 or 6 bullet points. But if you've been there for 15 years, it might take up 3/4, if not a whole page of the different things you've done there, the different titles you've had. Maybe you've moved up from a individual contributor to a manager to a director type role. Then you want to kind of list that. If it's a job you've been at for 1 or 2 years, I would say 5 or 6 bullet points. Some of the things that you've accomplished in that role. Maybe some teams you led or some projects you led as well too.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. And that's our last question for the day. Thanks to everybody who came on. Again, you can connect with our recruiters by looking at the event description or by looking at the comments. Don't forget to follow System One on LinkedIn if you're not already, and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can view other episodes of Sound Off with System One. We have lots of job seeker topics. Our next episode will be Friday, June 20th at 2 p.m., and we'll be discussing getting the compensation you deserve. Thanks so much.
Thank you.